Some individuals carry an internal rhythm so sharply tuned that their entire organism begins enforcing their truth with uncompromising force. This refined inner alignment produces a remarkable phenomenon. The body itself becomes the gatekeeper of authenticity. When someone reaches this level of psychic clarity, their physical structure starts responding to falsehood, dissonance, and self-betrayal with immediate, unmistakable reactions. These reactions do not resemble vague discomfort or the typical strain associated with unresolved emotional turmoil. They appear as swift, decisive signals marking a deep mismatch between one's core nature and whatever circumstance, person, or choice stands before them. Headaches may erupt the instant a commitment is made that violates inner principles. Waves of nausea can surge just as a reluctant yes forms, while every fiber insists upon a different direction. Exhaustion may descend suddenly when proximity to environments or people demands a facade. These responses are not expressions of fragility, nor are they pathological signs emerging from unintegrated wounds. They are the resulting expression of somatic intelligence functioning at full capacity. At a certain threshold of inner integration, the psyche ceases to operate as a fragmented cluster of competing motives. Instead, it forms a unified core with the physical structure acting as its loyal defender. The organism becomes a resonant chamber for one's personal frequency, and it refuses to tolerate anything that undermines that resonance. What once passed as manageable discomfort evolves into a non-negotiable refusal to participate in situations that distort the self. The body rejects what contradicts inner alignment in the same way an immune system rejects invasive substances. People experiencing this phenomenon often describe moments when their body shuts down before they can mentally justify or rationalize a compromising decision. A job requiring constant conformity or a relationship demanding self-abandonment begins producing genuine physical decline. The organism rises against the betrayal long before conscious reasoning catches up. This state differs profoundly from psychosomatic distress rooted in division or conflict. Neurosis reveals itself through the body because inner chaos seeks expression. The phenomenon described here emerges from coherence, not fragmentation. It is the biological voice of an integrated psyche insisting on truth. A person living from this internal clarity cannot utter even a small untruth without sensing constriction in the throat. They cannot remain in spaces where deception forms the social currency without feeling ill. Their physical presence demands honesty, not as a moral stance but as a biological imperative. Such individuals may have stepped away from positions, partnerships, or long-standing obligations not because they were too weak to endure them, but because their organism refused to participate in the distortion any longer. What looks like collapse from the outside is, in reality, a profound assertion of strength. Their frequency protects itself. Their system chooses coherence over compliance. The body refuses to metabolize anything misaligned with the genuine self. And this refusal is not subtle. It is categorical, immediate, and unyielding. When an individual's inner architecture becomes harmonized, the barrier between thought and circumstance begins to thin in a way that defies ordinary logic. External events start arranging themselves with striking exactness, as though the surrounding world were holding a constant conversation with one's private inner movements. These occurrences surpass the familiar category of coincidence. They emerge with a density and clarity that dismantle any comfortable reliance on probability. A person might be quietly contemplating a precise idea, only to hear someone nearby unknowingly utter the exact phrase occupying their mind. A fleeting recollection of a childhood acquaintance may surface, and within hours an unexpected encounter with someone closely connected to that memory occurs in an unrelated region of the world. A complicated dilemma may be turning over internally when a passing vehicle displays a message that delivers an uncannily direct response. Events unfold with such tight synchrony that dismissing them as chance becomes untenable. This pattern manifests when the psyche reaches a level of cohesion where the illusion of separation between inner processes and outer occurrences begins to dissolve. The universe stops functioning as a distant backdrop and starts behaving as a participatory field, one that mirrors the subtleties of the individual's emotional, intuitive, and psychological states. One becomes both witness and participant in the shaping of events, and every inner shift seems to ripple outward into the visible world. This phenomenon is neither superstition nor wishful thinking. It arises from the intimate relationship between consciousness and reality, a relationship that magnifies as inner fragmentation resolves. The clearer the internal field becomes, the more responsive the external environment appears. Thoughts, symbols, memories, doubts, and intentions begin echoing through daily events with startling precision. The person is no longer drifting through life as an observer. They find themselves in a dynamic exchange where meaning continually emerges. However, such responsiveness is rarely comfortable. When the world behaves as though it is listening, the margin for unconsciousness narrows drastically. Casual thoughts no longer feel harmless. Foggy intentions can summon equally foggy outcomes. Emotional turbulence triggers swift and unmistakable reflections in the environment. This heightened level of synchronicity invites a stark responsibility. One can no longer claim passivity or pretend to be unaffected by their own inner climate. For those experiencing this unusual sign, the world becomes a symbolic language that never stops speaking. Encounters, timings, and repetitions serve as answers to questions barely formed. The individual recognizes that every event carries a message, whether affirming, challenging, or redirecting. This continuous loop between inner life and outer manifestation becomes the natural atmosphere in which they live. These moments do not flatter the ego. They demand humility. The universe responds not because the person is special, but because their coherence leaves no obstructions between intention and manifestation. The individual is placed in the position of co-creator, whether or not they feel prepared. And once this mode of existence establishes itself, it rarely recedes. The world continues reflecting, responding, and revealing, with unwavering precision. Another striking indication of elevated inner coherence appears not within one's own body or circumstances, but in the responses elicited from other people. Individuals whose inner frequency becomes sharply defined often notice an immediate and powerful shift in how strangers behave around them. These reactions arise without conversation, without history, and without any logical explanation. The moment they enter a room, they trigger impressions that seem disproportionate to their actions. Intense aversion or unexpected warmth emerging from people who know nothing about them. Some individuals will exhibit abrupt hostility. Their expression stiffens, their posture constricts, and a quiet resistance forms the instant they perceive the presence of someone operating from psychological clarity. This antagonism is not directed at the person in front of them, but at something unaddressed within themselves. The individual with coherent energy becomes a mirror that reflects dormant qualities others have not integrated: potential, honesty, desire, strength, or suppressed emotional life. This reflection provokes discomfort because it exposes the internal contradictions they have avoided acknowledging. Conversely, other individuals may feel an immediate sense of safety. They open up without hesitation, revealing private stories, vulnerabilities, and long-guarded emotions as though speaking to a lifelong confidant. Their trust does not come from familiarity. It arises because they perceive an authenticity that gives them permission to access their own depth. Something in the aligned person's presence signals that concealed truths can surface without judgment. This phenomenon does not require performance, charisma, or deliberate influence. In fact, any attempt to produce a specific effect negates its authenticity. The reactions arise because the individual's frequency is too clear to remain unnoticed. Their presence carries a transparency that strips away social illusion. People do not respond to their personality. They respond to the resonance they emit. That resonance either harmonizes with unexpressed aspects in others or clashes with their unresolved inner world. Such a person cannot blend into crowds. Even silent participation fails to conceal them. People sense something before words emerge, an energetic distinction that resists neutrality. They provoke either attraction or discomfort, leaving little room for indifference. This polarization is not a measurement of worth. It is simply an indication that the individual's inner configuration no longer matches the ambient level of fragmentation that most people carry. The key difference between genuine influence and attention-seeking behavior lies in intention. When someone crafts an identity to provoke reactions, the responses originate from manipulation. But when a person stands firmly in their own truth without attempting to shape perception, the reactions arise organically. Their coherence itself produces the impact. No embellishment is needed, and no display is required. This unusual sign reveals that their inner alignment radiates outward with such clarity that others cannot help but feel it. People respond to what is awakened or threatened within themselves, not to any conscious effort from the one who carries the frequency. Presence alone becomes a catalyst, stirring what lies buried in those who encounter it. This phenomenon reinforces a simple reality. True alignment cannot be hidden. It announces itself through the way the world reacts. As the individual grows into psychological unity, the three unusual signs stop functioning as isolated experiences and instead merge into a single living expression of inner coherence. The body defends truth with unwavering precision. Reality responds with symbolic accuracy. People reveal their own unresolved layers simply by standing near someone whose frequency carries no contradiction. These three manifestations form an ecosystem of alignment, reshaping the person's interaction with the world on every level. This transformation does not arise from rituals, affirmations, or crafted personas. It emerges when the individual confronts their inner ruptures with enough sincerity to dissolve them. Once fragmentation softens and opposing parts of the psyche begin communicating, the resulting clarity radiates outward in ways that cannot be suppressed. There is no need for proclamation, performance, or self-promotion. The environment responds because the inner structure no longer wavers. Yet this clarity comes with a profound cost. Attempts to conform become intolerable. False agreements feel corrosive. Situations that once seemed bearable now generate intense bodily resistance. Social patterns built on subtle compromise collapse because the inner being no longer permits participation. The individual's life becomes reorganized around truth, sometimes abruptly, sometimes painfully, but always inevitably. This state also demands a new form of responsibility. Once the external world starts echoing inner states with precision, excuses lose their validity. Blame dissolves. Victimhood becomes impossible to maintain. Every circumstance, even the unpleasant ones, reveals something about the internal field that produced it. Synchronicity becomes a feedback mechanism rather than a magical anomaly, and the individual recognizes that they are always in dialogue with the world, whether or not they choose to acknowledge it. The responses from others serve as another mirror. Intense admiration and unprovoked hostility carry information about the person's energetic clarity, not about superiority or deficiency. The individual's presence no longer allows others to remain comfortable in their illusions, and this alone can trigger dramatic reactions. Such polarization is not a reward or punishment. It simply reflects the nature of a sharply defined inner frequency. At a certain stage, the person no longer seeks meaning in every event. They no longer analyze each synchronicity or measure their evolution through bodily reactions. These signs cease functioning as markers and become the stable texture of everyday life. They no longer require explanation. They no longer inspire fascination. They simply exist as natural consequences of inner truth. Eventually, a quiet acceptance settles in. The individual stops striving to appear conscious, elevated, or spiritually refined. They let go of the urge to demonstrate or justify anything. The frequency they carry no longer needs validation. It expresses itself in the way the world moves around them, in the behavior of their body, and in the way people react before a single word is spoken. This is not an achievement. It is the natural outcome of becoming whole. If this exploration has resonated with you, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and share a personal reflection or experience connected to these ideas.